And they that shall be of thee, right? So they that shall be of him, the Lord Jesus, shall build the old waste places. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations, right? So that's this generation, next generation, your kids, your grandkids. And you shall be called the repairer of the breach. Well, what's a breach? A breach is a breakdown in the wall, a breakdown in the protection. Think there's any breaches right now in our culture? The restorer of paths to dwell in. The restorer of paths to dwell in. Well, Jesus is the path, and he gives us the way, the truth, the life. So that's the way we walk in things, right? So, we can sit on the sidelines and be passive and complain and bicker amongst ourselves and squawk about this and squawk about that, or we can man up and we can work on repairing the breach and work on restoring the paths, right? And how you do that, I believe the best way to do that is your personal economic and time freedom, period. Own your time, own your finances, be the head, not the tail. Done. It's pretty hard to be able to fully operate on 8 cylinders in the culture if you're limited, if you're walking around with weights on, if you're walking around with drag, friction, right? And again, you all have heard me say this many times. There's nothing wrong with the job. I'm not anti-jobs. I'm anti-lack of freedom. A job is borrowed. A job is limited. You're building someone else's assets at a job, not yours. And you're not in position to harvest as much as you can when you're beyond a job. And I think that's a good way to think about it, as being beyond the job. And it's going to be up to you, though. And you got to work your mindset. That is, period, the secret. If there is one, it's not a secret. It's in the Bible. Yes, it's hard. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it. Okay. And so you've got to, when you're focusing on this, you can't become out of balance. You have different components of wealth, of biblical wealth, right? It's been said, you can call it the 5 or so F's, right? You have your faith. It's a relationship with the Lord. You have your family, right? You're not wealthy if you have a crappy family life. That's your marriage. That's your relationships with your kids. You have faith, family, your friends. We're social, right? Some of us skew more extroverted. Some of us skew more introverted, but we're still social. We need friends. We need fitness. If we're fat and lethargic, we're not wealthy, right? If we're sick and in bed, we're not wealthy. And the Lord Jesus paid a price for us to be free in all those areas. And then, of course, finances. And another one, in my opinion, is focus. He gave us that ability. That's our power. If God is light, God created the laser. You run light through a magnifying glass and you'll start fires. If you just scatter it, you won't. So there's a power of focus. And so we've got to be full stack Christians if we want to be the light on the hill and the salt and wealthy and free. And free not to consume, free to give. I was just reading about Jesus washing the disciples' feet. And, the greatest leader is the greatest server. So I encourage you to just level up, always press into that renewing of the mind. And there's nothing that God won't do for you if you're operating with his principles. And his principles are faith. And what is faith? Hope, right? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. No faith, or no hope, no faith. Faith is action. Faith without works is dead. So you got to be operating in faith. You got to do the work, trust God for the results. And while you're doing that, you need to be programming and reprogramming your software, your brain. You're believing. We're believers. We believe. That doesn't happen in our elbow or our foot or our toe. 6 inches between our right ear and our left ear. So then the battle becomes, how do I renew my mind effectively? How do I stay on target? How do I stay in the renewing? Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing or renovation of our mind. How do we do that? How do we do that day in, day out, right? You don't just wake up and say, I want to get fit and then do 1,000 push-ups. That's not effective. You got to do 100 push-ups or 10 push-ups every day forever. So we suggest you listen to Joel Osteen's message. It's a great message. I don't care if you love him or you hate him. It's totally irrelevant. Just listen. It's good. And then you have Andrew Womack. You should be programming that in. At night, you should be listening to some clean stand-up comedy. Laughter is the best medicine. So if you start to bookend your days, gratitude, of course, we recommend meditation, 20 minutes at least once a day. It'll be the hardest thing you do. It'll be the most valuable thing you ever do because he's the still small voice. And he says, be still. And then know I'm God. What comes first, the knowing or the stillness? The stillness. Why? Because he doesn't talk to us through our elbow. So you got to do those foundations, your daily habit tracker, day in, day out. And you want to be full stack. And then you just do the work. It's real simple, right? You get leads, you call them, you walk them through the script, can go a couple of different ways. Next. Serve them, and it's incredible. And you'll harvest. And you'll be building, if you're in the wealth path, you'll be building chunks of money through cash flow, so that the beginning of the month, you wake up and you've already earned X amount, and then you build on that to the next month. And it doesn't take you but a lot shorter than most of you expect to be able to get to 10 grand a month. And then when you're building, when you're making 10 grand a month of recurring residual income, that's a whole different game that you're playing now. Then you can learn how to convert that into long-term wealth and assets and holdings and reduce taxes and asset protection, all kind of cool stuff. But the beginning, step one, is let's get you making 10 grand a month of recurring residual income. Then you're free, right? Then if you hate your boss, you can fire your boss. How fun is that? Write a letter, dear boss, I, Paul Bacco, on XYZ, hereby declare that I am firing you as a boss. I love you, God bless you, but I'm out of here, baby. And if you have a boss that you don't like, you ought to write that letter. You ought to look at it every day. And if you have a boss that you do like, well, now you got some options, right? You can go to work if you want. How about volunteering? If you love it so much, why don't you just volunteer your time and buy back 40, 50, 60 hours of focus? So you need to have a vision. You need to work your mindset. You need to be in faith. You need to think big, work hard, and you'll crush it, period. Because that's the kingdom principle. It never happens as fast as we want, but I promise you it happens faster than we think it could, and we can go farther, quicker than you'd ever expect.